The Green Futures of Tycho by William Sleator. 4. Hey, Tycho, let me see that thing you found. Plump Leonardo plodded over to the vegetable plot, panting slightly, his glasses fogged. What thing? Tycho said placidly, continuing to turn over the earth in a pleasant, steady rhythm. A metal thing you picked up. I saw you put it in your pocket. Let me see it. Leonardo planted himself directly in the path of Tycho's shovel and glared at him threateningly. But the threat didn't mean very much, since Tycho had been growing quickly and was now 2 inches taller than his older brother, though he did weigh a good deal less. You're standing where I want to dig, Tycho said. Will you please move? You're standing where I want to dig, mimicked Tamara, who had been doing pick turns. Across the lawn, she stumbled to a halt beside Leonardo. No, he's digging where I want to stand, Leonardo corrected her, and he won't let me see the thing he found. Why don't you go paint something and let me make my garden, Tycho said, moving away from Leonardo and starting to turn over a new row. Garden? Tamara said, laughing. He'll just dig up the lawn and then forget about it in a week and go on to something else. I always finish what I start. I want to see that thing you found, said Leonardo, making a quick, awkward hop and settling his full weight down onto the shovel. I don't remember finding anything, said Tycho, not letting go of the shovel. Now he really did remember the thing he had found, but he felt a curious reluctance to let anyone else see it. Usually he did not lie even to his brothers and sister, but keeping the thing to himself seemed more important than telling the truth. What's going on back here? Demanded Ludwig, striding authoritatively toward them. He was taller than Tycho and skinnier, and had shoulder-length black hair that was always falling into his eyes. He folded his arms across his thin chest and stood slouching over the three of them. He won't let me see a thing he found, even though I saw it first, said Leonardo. He won't let me see a thing he found, even though I saw it first, said Leonardo, beginning to whimper. He's making big, ugly holes in the lawn, said Tamara. Tycho said nothing. All right, said Ludwig, snapping back his head to shake the hair out of his eyes. One thing at a time. What's with the digging, Tycho? I'm making a garden, Tycho explained patiently. I have all the seeds. You have to do it in spring, and Judy said it was okay. Well, if she said it was okay to waste a Sunday morning like that, said Ludwig, shrugging, I suppose you should get off his shovel, Leo. Well, but I saw the thing first, said Leonardo, sniffling as he backed down. He was very emotional. I saw it, but he picked it up and kept it and won't even let me look at it. He took off his glasses and rubbed the tears out of his eyes. Yeah, said Tamara. I saw it too. I always share things. Now Tycho couldn't restrain himself. I don't know what they mean they saw it first, he said. It's just a piece of metal I dug up with my shovel. It's no big deal. How could they have seen it? He's lying, shouted Leonardo, crying in earnest now. I was just coming out of the house and there was this thing and I said... Hand it over, Tycho, interrupted Ludwig quietly, holding out his hand. Now there was nothing to be done but show it to them. Perhaps they would lose interest when they saw how ordinary it was, and he wouldn't have to let anyone else touch it. Reluctantly, Tycho drew the thing out of his pocket and held it up for them all to see. It was nothing more than a silver oval, about the size and shape of a small egg. At first, it had seemed completely plain, with no markings on it at all. Now, studying it closely, Tycho could just make out a series of thin, barely visible lines etched on one end that looked like dials, and the opposite end now appeared to be a slightly different color from the rest. It seemed to have a faint greenish tint to it. Ludwig reached for it. Tycho squeezed his hand shut and whipped it behind his back. He took a step backward. I said hand it over, said Ludwig, taking a step forward and irritably snapping his head, shaking back his hair. No, said Tycho, not knowing why, only knowing that he must not give it up. It's mine. I found it. Leave me alone. He took another backward step. It's not like you to be so stubborn, said Ludwig. You're usually such a pushover, a little wishy-washy. Wishy-washy, wishy-washy, chorused the others. Come on, kids, ordered Ludwig. If we all go together, we can get it away from him easy. Tycho's back was now up against the wooden fence at the end of the yard. On all other sides, he was surrounded. They moved closer. Okay, kids. Ready, said Ludwig. On your mark, get set, go. Tycho braced himself against the wall. Involuntarily, his hand squeezed the thing, his thumb pressing down against the green end. They jumped at him and vanished. Tycho cried out, feeling faint, then sank down to the ground, his back still against the wall. They had simply blinked out of existence, silently, like blown-out candle flames, and the whole sky had become instantly darker, as though a gigantic cloud had suddenly blotted out the sun. "Oh, no," groaned Tycho, closing his eyes, terrified and bewildered. "Oh, no. So there you are, Tycho. Where on earth have you been?" Tycho blinked. Bobby and Judy reclined in lawn chairs in the middle of the yard, sipping cocktails as they sometimes did in the evening. And the sky, in fact, was not cloudy at all. It was orange, like a sunset. The sound of Ludwig practicing Chopin floated out across the lawn. "I see you didn't get very far with your garden," Judy said, standing up and gesturing at the holes in the lawn and the discarded shovel. "You promised me you would stick with it, and then you just disappeared all day." "But," said Tycho, struggling to his feet, "but I was just..." He shook his head and gave up. Nothing was making sense. He was barely aware of the silver egg, warm now in his palm. Without thinking, he slipped it into his left pocket. Bobby and Judy were both moving toward him now. Bobby was shaking his head. "Can't you stick with anything?" he said. "All those gardening books and packages of seeds, and then you dig 3 holes and just run away? The kids told us all about it. Now you better fill up those holes and put the shovel away, and go memorize your constellations before dinner." Tycho had no idea at all what had happened, and so he wisely made no attempt to explain. All he knew was that somehow the whole day seemed to have passed in an instant without his knowing it. He had fainted. Had he fainted and been lying unobserved beside the fence for 8 hours? But that was crazy, just as crazy as his brothers and sister vanishing. It was going to take some hard thinking to figure it all out, and he was still a bit frightened, but in the meantime, he had had some unfinished business. Silently, he picked up the shovel and began to dig. Isn't it a little late for that now?" said Judy, her hands on her hips. "Please just let me finish this," Tycho said. "I'm sorry about today. I really do want to make a garden. I mean it." They sighed and shrugged and reluctantly let him dig and told him to wash his hands before he came in to eat. They went into the house. Tycho kept on digging and thinking. He knew there had to be a logical explanation for what had happened. All he had to do was put the pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle. He was so engrossed in his thoughts that he did not notice the piano music coming to an abrupt halt, and soon after that 3 pairs of footsteps padding across the lawn. "So, you decided to come back after all. Running away like that only proves you were wrong. What makes you think you have time to make that stupid garden now?" Tycho pushed the shovel into the earth, rested his foot on it, and gazed speculatively at them. He too had some questions to ask. "How did you get away from us like that anyway?" asked Ludwig, squinting at him through his long bangs. If they knew he was confused and trying to get the answers from them, they wouldn't tell him a thing. He was going to have to be clever about it. "Oh, it was just a trick I learned in a book I read about guerrilla warfare. I guess it must have worked. How did it look to you?" "You just disappeared," said Leonardo, sounding a little frightened. We were asking you some questions, and suddenly you weren't there. You went out like a light. We couldn't find you anywhere. So then we just gave up and went back to our projects, and finally Bobby and Judy came in and told us you were back. Come on, how did you do it?" From their point of view, he had vanished. The other difference was that he had skipped a whole day, whereas their day had gone on as usual. That had to mean something. How did you do it?" demanded Tamara. "It's really simple," he said. "Maybe I'll tell you someday, if you're nice." "But where did you go all day, anyway?" Ludwig was still squinting at him suspiciously. "Oh, nowhere. Just around," said Tycho, beginning to dig again. Excuse me. "Well, what about that thing you found?" said Ludwig. "I want to see it now." That thing! He had almost forgotten about it again. The metal thing he had dug up, like an egg, with the dials at one end. "Yeah, give it up." "Yeah, give it to me," Leonardo said shrilly. "I saw it first." The silver egg he had been squeezing when they had jumped him, and then vanished, and suddenly morning had become evening. "If you don't hand it over now, I'll have to tell Bobby and Judy," Ludwig said. Now the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and the solution was incredible, fantastic, marvelous. Was it possible that the egg had carried him 8 hours ahead in time, from morning to evening in an instant? "Oh," said Tycho. He shrugged. You're still thinking about that stupid thing? It was just an old empty lipstick tube. You want it? I guess I still have it. He reached into his right-hand pocket and fished around. Then he grinned sheepishly and pulled the inside pocket out, displaying a huge hole. I guess it must have fallen out sometime while I was gone. Sorry, it wasn't anything really. He started digging again. You idiot! But it wasn't. But if it wasn't anything, said Ludwig, then how come you were so determined to keep it away from us? Well, just because. I don't know. I mean, children, time to eat, Judy called from the back porch. Oops, I have to go wash my hands, said Tycho, and he darted away from them. As he sprinted toward the house, he could feel the silver egg still warm in his left-hand pocket. After dinner, he would get away somewhere by himself, and then he would test the egg and find out if the fantastic solution was really true. And if it was true, nothing would ever be the same again. And that's the end of chapter 4.